Hey folks, Fred here, back in the shop, working on the Willys build again. The focus of this episode is going to be centered around a decision I made a while back regarding the front axle for this truck. I ended up making the decision to put a locking hub conversion kit, specifically Yukon's spin-free locking hub conversion kit on this Dana 44 front axle. And there's a variety of reasons that I decided to do that, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on along the way of this build. What I did had some difficulty in finding any kind of video tutorial in basically installing one of these spin-free hub kits. Actually, Ian Johnson has got a video where he kind of goes through putting one on a Dodge 2500, but he doesn't really go into a lot of detail, and it's nothing against Ian. He's a really cool guy and puts a lot of great content out there. I love watching his videos. Extremely experienced. But for just the average mechanic like me, I need a little bit more detail, and the owner's manual, or sorry, the instruction manual for this kit is not really detailed. So I thought I would just, you know, while I'm doing this build, while I'm videoing a lot of these things, I thought I would just go through installing mine on this truck. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of go through, open up the box. We'll see what's in, comes with the kit. And then we'll get busy putting this on. All right, so this is the kit that I got for this specific build. It's the YAWU-08. So it's for a 30 spline Dana 44. And so this does change the lug pattern from the original TJ 5 by 4.5 to 5 by 5.5. So definitely need to be aware of that. The Revolution axles that I put in the rear axle had the ability to go 4.5 or 5.5. So obviously I'm going to install those lug studs as 5.5. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, first thing, looks like we've got the seals for the hubs. Looks like kind of both front and back, and then there's the spindle nuts. All right, inner and outer bearings. Look like they're both the same size. And these are the USA made Timken bearings, so that's good. Here's your installation kit, or sorry, instructions. These look like these are pretty good. So there's two sets. There's one is kind of the installation of the hubs, the hub conversion kit, and then the other one is for the hardcore locking hubs that come with this kit for the Dana 44 30 spline axle. Looks like the instructions for the hubs is pretty detailed, but the installation instructions for exploded diagram here, obviously, for the the hub and everything, the bearings on the spindle is not as detailed. So anyway, if y'all are visual learners, we'll go through and basically capture all of that. All right, so there's one of the spindles. Other spindle. Hub. So we'll have to, looks like we'll have to put the races in there for the bearings. hub. Oh, nice. So it comes with the U-joints as well. So I think these are the Spicer 5-740U. I think it, see if it says that in here somewhere. As far as the, I read somewhere that some of these earlier axles, they came with a smaller U-joint, and you have to go to the, you may have to replace the entire axle if that's the case, because these are the larger. I don't see where it is in here, but these are the larger Spicer U-joints, the heavier duty Spicer U-joints. I think they're Spicer 5-740s or something like that. I can't remember exactly what those are. All right, and then the wheel studs. All right, so there's both sides. These also come, this set also comes with rotors for the front. So the 5x5 rotors that you have to use with this set, which that's awesome. And it comes with the rotors as well. There's the other rotor. All right, so then here are the two stub axles. Open this up real quick. I appreciate y'all being patient with me. I'm not typically a fan of unboxing videos. I know there's a lot of them out there on the internet, but I know it takes a lot of patience to watch those, but I'm just I think it's important to kind of go through and kind of look at everything. So there's the stub axle that you'll have to, to swap out and put onto your axles. So it's a little bit longer to obviously to accept those locking hubs. All right. So both stub axles, and then finally the hardcore hub system. All right. Just got the outer I'm not sure what you call these the little spline locking deals. Everybody loves stickers, so there's our stickers with the springs, hardware, and then the hardcore locking hub setup here. Sweet. Very nice. Okay, so we'll get going here on getting this all sort of organized, everything opened up, and getting this installed. So I'll capture, kind of a step-by-step video of kind of getting this kit installed. We'll just do one side. Obviously, it's going to be the same on both sides. And so hopefully that will help you folks out. Those of y'all that are visual learners like me have to kind of see it being done. So there's our other brake rotor in there as well. Cool. So I have to say I'm pretty happy with the components that come in this kit. As I mentioned earlier, the bearings are all USA made Timken bearings. The U-joints are included as well, and they're Spicer. And even the brake rotors are Raybestos brake rotors. So pretty happy with the the origin of all the components I've seen in here so far. So let's talk a little bit about my reasoning, the reasoning in general with going with locking a locking hub conversion. setup on these TJs, these Dana 44s. So as y'all well know, you know, these are a unit bearing design. So basically when the wheel's turning, you know, the entire, you know, internal kind of rotating mass, everything's turning. The axles, you know, your differential, everything is turning in there. So, you know, that's a lot of rotating mass, but also, you know, just kind of drag, wear and tear on those components. And so the benefit of having, you know, the ability to, you know, to unlock your hubs is pretty obvious. But also these unit bearings, which I think, from what I understand, and I'm not a long time, you know, Jeep owner or anything, but you know, if you're, this is kind of a vulnerable part, and so if unit bearing fails, I mean, you're kind of in trouble. The locking hub system goes with a spindle, and you'll kind of see once we start getting this assembled. You got a traditional spindle, inner and outer bearings with the hub, and so if you break an axle or something like that, you know, this unit bearing is kind of relying on the axle, the presence of the axle there. So if you break an axle or something, you can be in trouble. But with this, you know, if I break an axle on one side or something like that, I can just unlock that side, and I can still get off the trail. So we'll start getting this taken apart and start getting it installed. All right, next step is to get the brake rotor connected with the outer hub here by pressing the wheel studs through the back of the brake rotor and into the hub. So we're going to get that done here. Get the wheel studs out. All right, so that's going to go something like this here. All right, let's take this over to the press and get this pressed in. All right, we got it supported under the front of the hub here. Obviously where these wheel studs can kind of come through, and it's got like a little push rod kind of deal from some previous project. I'm not sure what that's from, but just going to get these pushed in. And so you don't want to go crazy on these. You just want the flange of the back of the wheel stud to contact the flat part of the rotor. And I just got all the studs kind of dropped in there just so it kind of keeps it straight. You can kind of feel here and know that it's, I need to get a little bit more square on my support here. You can kind of feel that it's, you know, that's kind of centered on the rotor. Make sure that's under that well, supporting that well. But yeah, as I was saying, you don't really want to hoss down on these. You want to just get that down to where that flange contacts the back of the rotor there, and then you'll kind of feel when it bottoms out and your press gets a lot harder to press. About right there. Okay. All right, good. Now I'm going to spin it kind of all the way around and get one kind of on the other side, just so I know it's kind of going in there nice and square. Everything's lined up. Still kind of loose here, so I know I got to come back and hit that one again because that one's not completely tight. So I'll hit that again. make sure that that is definitely compressing that rotor against the hub. All right, come on. So fiddly. Okay. Okay, the rain's coming down pretty good outside on the tin roof here at Mike's shop. Hopefully you can hear me okay. But I've got the all the wheel studs pressed into the front hubs. And I guess the one thing I noticed is that these wheel studs are pretty short. So depending on what size wheel you go with, you know, if a steel wheel versus an aluminum wheel, you know, that's going to be thicker right there in the lug nut seat. Hopefully those are going to be long enough. I guess that's the one thing I've noticed that I'm questioning a little bit. So hopefully they'll be long enough. Those look pretty short. The other thing I wanted to mention is what I've done. I already had my rear brake rotors, and unfortunately they're not drilled for or dual drill. They're just drilled for 5x4.5. So what I've done is I'm going to drill these, and so I just while my studs were still in my axle, I just put it in the vise here. I bolted the brake rotor upside down onto the axle. Then I flipped the whole assembly over, and where you saw I put some. Well, it's actually red Sharpie, but it's acting like Dychem. I used a centering punch in the holes that are drilled in the axle flange, 5x5.5, and I just punched these. You know, punch where those need to be drilled. So I'll drill these out, or drill them. I think that's a 3/4 inch hole. I think, so there's enough kind of movement. It's not going to go anywhere. It's centered on the center of the axle there, and then the wheels, you know, clamp to it, obviously. So I'll get those drilled, and so my rear rotors will be good to go. All right, so to get this unit bearing off, I've got the brake rotor off, obviously, already. We just got to pull the axle nut off, and we will take the 3 bolts out of the back of the unit bearing, pull the unit bearing off, and then we should be able to go ahead and pull the axle straight out. $13mm bolts, 3 of them holding the Jeep TJ unit bearings on. I'm not getting in your viewing angle. All right. So these were the original unit bearings that came when I bought this Jeep, and I just slapped them back on there because I figured I was going to be doing a locking hub conversion down the road. So I'm glad I didn't buy new ones. All right, so now we'll pull the axle out. You know, being nice and diligent, slow, methodical, because you need to think about your inner axle seal in the housing up there. You don't want to damage that. So we'll kind of feel it come through there. Slide it out. All right, so we'll take this over to the bench now, and then we've got to take the old U-joints out, put in our new U-joints and then the longer stub axle that's needed for this kit. Okay, so we're gonna get ready to get these U-joints pressed out of the axle. And so the first thing you want to do, remember to remove your retaining clips from the inside, each side. And then we're going to get a socket that's big enough, this happens to be a 30 millimeter, big enough to receive the cap on one side. So it'll sit on the ear like that. And then on the other side, to press, we're going to press right in the center of the cap. So we get a smaller socket. This happens to be a 9/16. So I'm going to try to tape these in place because it takes a little bit of dexterity to kind of make all this happen. So I'm going to try to sort of tape these in place so when we take it over to the press, I'm not sure this is going to work. We'll see. We'll get this one in place and then we'll flip it around and get the other one in place, because this tape will tear, you know, as that starts pressing on that right there. So something like that. All right, let's take it over to the press. All right, so we got it set up in the press. Got everything lined up. Got the socket that's going to receive the U-joint cap in the bottom. Press it right out here. There we go. Easy peasy. So you can hammer these out. I've certainly seen people, you know, hammer them out. I don't really like, I mean, I got a press, I might as well use it. I don't like smacking around on the axle and everything. All right, let's get this disassembled. We'll get the new ones installed. Okay, I just got the driver's side, the short side axle in the vise here, and obviously got the U-joint out. I've just got a little flat wheel, like 100 grit. It's gonna kind of go in here and just clean up the surface where the new U-joint's gonna go in. Okay, should be all it needs. You don't want to take a bunch of material out, obviously, because it's kind of a press fit, but just want to get all the several years of rust and accumulation and stuff like that out of there. Spin it around, get the other side. All right, so we'll wipe those out, get those cleaned up nicely, put just a little bit of light grease in there and get our U-joints pressed in. So we'll do the passenger side, long side the same way. So I got a good clean assembly work area here. I've got my two stub axles. These are 4340, as you can see, chromoly steel, nice hard stuff. So hopefully it'll be nice and durable. I've got them just wiped down with some acetone just to kind of get all the packing grease and everything off of them. So those are ready to go. Nice ring to those. And then I've got my Spicer U-joints out. And so these are the Spicer 5760X U-joints. I thought I read somewhere about some differences in some of these earlier Jeeps, but I think I was reading on a different model or something like that. So all the Dana 44s should have the, you know, this larger Spicer 5-760X U-joint. It's got the clips. And I've wiped this down as well. I got all the kind of the packing grease, and that stuff kind of, as it dries out, gets a little bit goopy. So you want to clean all that off. The other thing you want to do is, you know, when you're handling, just a tip, when you're handling these U-joints, keep them kind of flat like this instead of doing like this, because ultimately these caps will fall off if you hold it vertically like that. If you hold it horizontally, they'll all stay on there. But if you hold it like this and one drops off, it hits the floor, there's a chance one of those needles in your needle bearing may get dislodged, or heaven forbid, you may lose. And that's no bueno if that happens. So just make sure those stay on there. The other thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put a few more pumps of grease in here. This is just some extreme pressure grease, just to add a little bit more in there. You can see the cavities are filled. You know, there's a cross cavity that goes through there that keeps all of them, you know, you know, grease. But I'm just going to add just a little bit more since I got it here, because these are not, they don't have Zerk fittings, so I can't grease them. So it's a good time to do this now. All right, so we're gonna get these pressed into our stub axles, and it doesn't take a lot to get those in there. And then we're going to join them with our Jeep axles. All right, so we'll get that done here. Okay, I've got my caps pulled off of one of the U-joints, so I'm gonna take my stub axle, take the U-joint and kind of fish it in here, and then kind of support it with my fingers as I get one of the caps. Again, making sure your needle bearings are all still in place up against the wall of your cap. So get it sort of sticking out one side so I can get that centered and started in there. And I'll just take a little mallet and just kind of give it a couple little taps to kind of get it started. All right, so I can feel that is in there. All my needles are, I'm confident all my needles are still in the same place. And so I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Now that I've kind of tapped it in, it's sort of more centered, as you can see here. And so then I'm gonna take my second cap, again, inspecting all my needles, making sure they're still where I want them to be. Now I'm gonna slide it over to the other side again to get the other side in. Okay, give this side just a couple little taps to kind of get it started. Okay, feels good. All right, so we'll take it over to the press now and press it together. Okay, it felt like it was binding up a little bit, so I stopped and I checked with a flashlight just to inspect all my needle bearings, because you can see down around that seal, make sure they're all still where they need to be, and make sure that is floating nicely there. All right, so if you watch these caps, as I'm gonna bring this down, those caps are going in the ears individually. I can still move the U-joint, so I'll know everything is good. All right, so I'm gonna bring it on down to the point where I can see the collar of where the retaining clips go in. I can see the lower one here, so I can see that the groove where that retaining clip goes. So I'm going to grab that retaining clip and put it in here, and so then that way I can push the upper cap on down till I can see that one, and it'll push it against this inside of this ear. So let me grab that retaining clip. Okay, so I got my clips here. You can see, again, you can see that groove, so I'm just going to pop that clip right in there. Okay, so bottom clip is in. So now I can push on down, and I'm watching for this upper groove as that cap comes on down. Okay, so we got this side pressed in. It's pretty tight. There we go. Yeah, quite tight. We're gonna get it united with the rest of the axle here. So we're gonna just work this one in. Okay, again, we got a little bit of extra grease in our caps there. So get that one started. Again, making sure that all those needles are in there. Smack it in a little bit. So now I feel that's started. Other side should be centered now. The other cap, same deal. Get that one started in. Actually gonna pull it over a little bit so make sure it's getting started on straight. Okay, feels good. All right, so we're gonna get this back in here, get it set up, get this side pressed on. Set up again. Let's put this axle. The passenger side's a little trickier because it's so heavy. It's so long. Okay. There's sockets on there to make sure we're pressing both in. Okay. Alright, so it didn't take, I'm gonna take a whole lot to get this one in. Because again, the tolerance is not as tight. All right, so I can see the spot here for the upper retaining clip. Send it home. All right, so should be done with our axles here. Yeah, this one feels pretty good. Okay, so I got both axles, the stub axles on. So here's the passenger side, driver's side. If they feel a little bit tight, you can just kind of smack on these ears a little bit, and it'll kind of balance that up and free it up. This one was a little bit tight initially, but I just kind of whacked on both sides there, and now it's nice and smooth. All right, so just put a little bit of grease here where the inner seal is going to ride, just so when I slide this in, you know, I got fresh grease riding on my seal there. All right, so to get the area or this part of the knuckle cleaned up where the spindle is going to bolt on, just going to clean the inside here and then clean the face. The face is pretty clean. I've already cleaned that, but we'll hit it again, but we'll hit the inside here. So I've got the races here. We're about to drive these into the hubs, inner and outer. I just wiped them down with a little bit of acetone, get all that packing grease off. I'm just gonna put just a very light little smear of wheel bearing grease on the outside shoulder of the race, just so it slides down in there nicely. Not much, just a real thin coat. All right, so sit it even. The driver started. Get it started where it's nice and straight, and then get the driver on. Send it home. So you'll hear a change in pitch when it bottoms out into the hub. Right there.
Right on the frame there.
All right, so that one's in. Flip it over, get the outer one in. Same deal. I didn't realize it was vibrating off.
That was fate. For me to react to it.
It's fast. All right, the outer one is a lot deeper, so it's a little trickier to get it started. It's nice and square. So you got to take your time on this one. So you got to kind of take 2 fingers on the inside, sit it down there on that shoulder, and feel it where it's nice and square. We'll get the bearing race driver seated on it nice and square. A few little taps. Check it to make sure it's starting square, and it's not. So I'm going to take my end off the driver and just kind of use the shoulder on one side, because this is aluminum, it's nice and soft on one side, just to help it get squared up a little bit. I think I need just a little bit more oomph. And if it's still not going the way you want it, you can always, drive it back out from the back side, which you may have to do. Can't get this to drop on down. Okay, it's going. A little persuasion. All right, we'll get it back on. And this one is pretty deep where it has to go, so there it goes. All right, it's dropping down. And some people will do this with a press. You can do it with a press as well, which is fine. But it's kind of one of those tactile things where you kind of have to feel, where it's going for me. All right, there's a change in pitch, so I know it's home. Okay, so next step, we'll get our bearings packed. On the inside, you've got to get your bearing packed real well, pack a bunch of grease down in the cavity in between the bearings, drop your bearing in, and then press the seal in. So our seals are right there. So we'll get those opened up and then get the seal on. Okay, so I've got the cavity in between the bearing races packed with grease. I've got the wheel bearing, inner wheel bearing packed, dropped it in. Now I'm ready to put the seal in. So seal, again, just right there. I've got my driver with the largest size. So it's going to drive it in only until it hits this ridge and no deeper. So that's as deep as you want it to be. Okay. I'm going to put just a very, very light coat on the outside here, so it slides in there nice and easy. It's always a good idea to just check to make sure the spring is present in these seals, and that, I can see it right there before you drive it in. Just kind of one of those security things. I've never seen one where the spring was missing, but you don't want to find out later on that it is. You start getting water and stuff in your hub. So, all right, so I'm going to drive this in. Again, get it to start nice and square. If it doesn't want to, it's going to help it along. All right, so now it's all even all the way around. So I can get my driver on there. On down. Okay. Should be good. Perfect. All right, with the other one done. Okay, so we're going to talk about the seals on the end of the stub axles now. So there's 4 pieces to this that basically going to be in your blister pack. So when you take this out, you're going to have a metal, kind of a dust shield, sort of a slinger type thing here, which I've already got on. So this is just kind of just a slip fit. You kind of have to tap it on with a hammer. So you can kind of see, you know, the larger portion goes against the yoke. And so then you've got this hard plastic piece washer that's chamfered on the inside, on one side. So that goes in the center. So the chamfer portion goes toward the axle, toward the vehicle, all right? So that's gonna just sit kind of right in the center of that metal portion. The other portion is the seal, which is going to sit on the shoulder of this dust shield, slinger, whatever this is here. And so it has a very prominent lip. All right, so this lip is going to be riding right on this flat portion right here. All right. So I put a little bit of grease already on this, as well as I've greased my roller bearing on the inside here, where the stub axle is going to come through, and that roller bearing is going to be riding on this shoulder of the stub axle here, which is kind of flared up and smooth. So that's where the roller bearings is going to ride. So you want to, pack a bunch of grease in there. And then the small seal here, if you look kind of closely, there's a little groove in it. And so the groove kind of goes toward the vehicle. All right, so the flat portion goes against the needle bearing. So it sits right in there, okay? And it's kind of held in by grease. All right, so that's in there. On that, this portion, you've got to kind of stretch it over and make sure it sits on that shoulder. All right, get it up and over there so it sits on the shoulder. So this is what it's going to look like here. All right, so there's the lip part, the plastic piece is in the center, and then as that spindle slides on here, make sure that rubber seal right here stays in place, and it's going to slide right on and go right up against this. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little bit of grease on the seal here on this little lip portion, and then we'll go slide this axle in. All right, so I'm on the driver's side now. I'll kind of swap sides on you, but pretty much the same. So we're going to slide this axle in. I've already got anti-seize on the knuckle here, on the face, and on the inside where the shoulder of the spindle is going to slide in. I'm just going to put a little extra grease here on where my seal rides. So again, it's not running dry right there and damaging the seal. All right, we're going to snake this in nice and easy and slow into the axle tube, supporting it all the way back. Try not to let the splines kind of rub in the tube any more than possible. These tubes are really clean because it's a new axle build, but if you're swapping out an axle or something, you may have a bunch of mud and grit and crap laying in there. You don't want to carry all that into your differential as it gets picked up on the spline. So, all right, so I can feel it's sliding through the seal now. I'm going to go nice and easy, slow, gentle. All right, now it's into the differential. I feel the teeth of the splines kind of engaging, and then it's home. All right. So next thing that's going to go is going to be the spindle. Here again, we've got grease in the needle bearing there. And then that rubber seal is in there. All right, so before this goes on, you got to put your dust cover on. Don't forget your dust cover. Okay, which is going to go like that. And so then we're just going to slide this on nice and gentle like. Got a little bit of grease on this on the axle, stub axle as well. Slide it back nice and easy so it lines up with our holes. Okay. All right. So our 3 bolts coming in from the back. A little anti-seize on those through the dust cover and into the spindle housing. And then these are going to get torqued to 75 foot-pounds. There we go. Okay. Double check it again. Okay, so spindle bolts torqued. Okay, so next step is we'll get some grease on the spindle here, get our hub slid on, and then we're going to go through the getting the lock nuts on, you know, getting everything torqued down there, and then finally putting the hardcore locking hub set together. All right, I want to take just a second to kind of go through how the lock, or the nuts, the spindle nuts and the lock washer are set up. So this is the spindle for the driver's side. I don't have on here yet. And so it's got a notch kind of cut in it right here. So once you slide the hub over this, okay, the next thing that's going to go on is going to be the nut that's got a little tab on it. that you can see right there. All right, so this is going to go on. Screw down against the bearing cone. And so this is going to get tightened to about 50 foot-pounds. And then you back it off. Actually, you tighten it down to 50 foot-pounds, and then you rotate the hub, okay, to seat the bearing. And then you back it off a quarter turn, and then you torque it down to 15 to 20 foot-pounds. So that's the torque spec on the inner nut. So once you've got it torqued 15 to 20 foot-pounds, then this lock washer goes on. Okay, so there's a tab that slides down in that groove. And so this goes down and then engages wherever that little tab is. That's where it's going to stay. So it's going to prevent that from moving. All right. And you can, you know, if it's not lining up, you can flip it over, you know, until it lines up to where wherever that little tab ended up. Drop that on, make sure that's engaged, and then your outer nut goes on. All right, so then you snug the outer nut up to the lock washer, and then this is torqued to 125 to 150 foot-pounds. All right, and so you got to have one of these special locking hub sockets. It's got these teeth in it that engage in those teeth to torque that. Final torque spec. All right. Okay, so let's look at this hardcore locking hub system here. All right, so we're going to get everything for one side out. Okay, so you're going to have a little parts bag here that's going to have your locking ring, it's going to have a series of some spacers here and snap rings, and then these kind of spiralized retainer rings as well. Okay, and that's another little washer there. So, or maybe I don't have a variety of different thicknesses of washers. It may just be a standard size. I was reading in the instructions on some applications, you have to kind of play around with different thicknesses to make sure you get the right kind of tension for the driver, which this is referred to as the driver. That's got the splines, the outer splines which engage in the hub, and then it's got a series of cogs on both sides here as they mesh together, kind of a bronze bushing, and then the inner splines that engage on the axle, the stub axle. All right, so that's kind of fit together. Right, so that's called the driver, and this is the cam. What do they call that? Cam driver or something like that as well. And then obviously we got all the little bolts, stainless steel. Allen head socket screws that go through the external portion of the hub into the retaining ring. All right, so this is going to hold that retaining ring kind of in place, and then the screws go through there. So, all right, so that's kind of how this goes together. So once you get, you know, we got the lock nuts on the spindle. So then this washer kind of slides in, that the spring kind of seats in or seats up against there. And then the driver is going to go in, and we'll put the spacer. Actually, the spacer goes behind. Actually, goes on the stub first, and then sits right there. And then that goes on the stub axle, slides on the stub axle, and then the snap ring goes on last to hold all that on. All right. So then the spring is against this face. So then that's how it kind of disengages, by this cam kind of pushing it down. Like when you twist this, these cam ears engage, you know, with this sloped portion of the selector, and it pushes that in, and so that's how it basically disengages. All right. So I'm going to go through. We'll kind of look at all this again as sequentially as I put it in the hub, and we'll kind of talk through how that all fits together. All right. Let's get our stub axle greased up and get it on the axle. All right, so we're down to the last steps here. So I've got my spindle nuts tightened, torqued to 150 foot-pounds. And so now I'm just gonna start packing some grease in here. Pretty generous amount of grease. So I'm using this Valvoline kind of moly fortified gray grease. So we're just gonna get this in here, pack a good bit around the spindle, on the splines on the hub side. Right. Don't be afraid to really get it in there. This is no place to be sparing. Right. So the first thing that's going to go in is going to be referred to as the spring seat. And so the flat part goes away from the vehicle, or out. Okay. So that's going to slide in there as far as it can go. All right. Next thing is going to be the spring. So we push that in there. That is going to be followed by our spacer. All right, so remember the spacer goes kind of behind the driver. All right. And so here's the driver. So obviously we want to get a lot of grease in these cogs of this driver. All right, in between. Okay, where those are gonna mate. So let's get a good amount of grease in there. All right. We'll put some on the outside as well, but you know there's some in the splines already, so that should help with that. All right, I'm gonna get some on the other side, kind of around where this brass or bronze bushing is. I'm going to put these back together. I'm going to put some inside here as well, in these teeth, on this part as well as the other part. All right, so put these back together. All right, get some on the outside as well. Okay, and then you want to have your snap ring ready, because that's what's going to hold this in. So for the Dana 44, it's the smaller snap ring that's kind of got these shoulders. All right, so the spring is going to seat right on the back on this recessed part of the driver, just like that. So you may have to turn the axle a little bit to kind of get it to engage and line up there. I'm gonna reach back here and turn the axle a little bit to get it to slide in. Okay, there we go. So now it's sliding in. You gotta see how it's going in there. And then we're gonna pop our snap ring on. Should just be able to push it on, hopefully. If not, I've got some snap ring pliers standing by here. We'll get those in here, get this thing spread open with my you can see the holes. There we go. All right. Oh, come on. Get back in there. Yeehaw. There we go. Whew, everything is so slippery. Come on. All this grease makes it really challenging to do. My hands are slipping down my pliers. Okay. All right, so got the snap ring in place, holding the driver in, and it's got a little bit of play there, and it's supposed to have a little bit as I can kind of push that in. I'm not sure if it's supposed to have that much, but we'll check, you know, what the tolerance is. It does say, it does have a value in there, but it feels pretty good. All right. So the next thing that goes on is going to be the cam driver. So that's kind of what pushes back on the inside against it, so I can feel it pushing away now. All right. So I'm going to put a little bit of grease on these ears. Okay. That's going to go in. And that kind of slides all, you know, it slides all around, so just kind of get it in there. And then the next thing that's going to go in is going to be the locking ring, the lock ring there. All right, so that is held in by this spiralized retainer. So you just kind of have to start it in the groove that's just on the inside of where that retaining ring is, and kind of feed it in round, around, and round until you feel it drop in and go home. All right, so that's in. Feels good. All right, let's clean everything up here so we can kind of see what we're doing before we put the last step, which is going to be getting our selector on here. All right. So kind of see how this, where this wants to live here. So we're going to put some seems like there should be an O-ring that runs around that. You see that little groove right there? I'd imagine that's supposed to have an O-ring, because that's, you know, that's going to be a water seal. So let me go back over in the kit and see if I can find O-ring for that. There's an O-ring on the outside, right here. There should be one on the inside sitting in that groove right there. So I'll check that. I'll be right back. Okay, I just grabbed the other selector here, and there's an O-ring in place on this one. So my other one is missing the O-ring. So shame on you, Yukon. And that's not the only thing that I've got to discuss with Yukon when I call them tomorrow on Monday. They also put the wrong race in one of my bearing sets, so I've got to get that rectified. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So, all right, we're going to put a little bit of grease just right on this O-ring, just so it, it's not dry when it's being manipulated here, and also kind of helps keep water and stuff out. So, doesn't take much, just a little bit right around that. All right, we'll drop that in. Okay, nice fit. Same deal on the outside here. We're just going to put a little bit of grease right around this O-ring on the outside before we get our grease on the inside of the selector ears, and then get our little stainless steel socket head screws in place. So you want to try to avoid getting too much grease in the thread holes of the retaining plate here, because it does recommend putting just a little bit of 1 drop of Loctite. I think 242 is what it calls for, but that is the blue Loctite on those threads. So we'll do that. All right, so just putting a little bit of moly grease down on these ramps that are going to ride, on the ears here for the selector function. All right, so you got to kind of see where your bolt holes are going to line up, and sort of adjust your selector accordingly. So it should be, come on, baby. Another one of those deals where you got to hold your mouth right here. So these ears go in these cavities right here, as you can see on both sides there. Make sure I got a little bit of grease down in there as well. Otherwise, it's not going to go home. Okay. Okay, there we go. So that's on. Selector should be in lock. Okay, so that's where it needs to be. We need to rotate this a little bit to find where our socket heads are going to go. So we're going to put just a drop of Loctite on each of these, and then find where that wants to drop in. Right there. Okay. We're screwing those in. Okay. So again, there's these little neoprene washers that go on the back of the screw that just, again, helps kind of keep water and stuff out as you tighten these down. And then these are torqued to 22 inch-pounds. So not a lot at all. Okay. Whoop, a little bit much there. All right, already got some on that one.
So on the last one. All right, so let's get these screwed in. It's finger tight. Okay. All right, so now before I actually torque those, I'm just going to make sure that it's working. So I don't have to take, you know, all that back apart. So it should be locked now. And then free. Lock, free. All right, so now spin the hub. I'm looking at my actual U-joint. It's not moving. All right, go back to lock. Feel it engage. And there's my axle turning. All right, so it seems to be working just fine. Perfect. Go back to free. Let's see. That's free. Yep, disengaged. All right, so we're gonna torque these to 22 inch-pounds. So I've just got my inch-pound torque wrench, and let's see. Set it on 0. It's not gonna be much. Got 22 right there. Right there. Two. And the last one. 22. All right, here she is. Mike just walked up just for the reveal. All right, she's done, buddy.
All right, good job.
One side, anyway. We gotta do the other side. So free. Go to lock. Feel it engage. Now you can see the whole axle turn.
Awesome.
Turned in. Sweet.
Yeah.
All right, so signing out for here.
Okay, so that's about a wrap for the installation of the spin-free locking hub system on the truck. So I'll give you a look here. So that's how it turns out. So I'm pretty happy with it. These are my new wheels, American Racing Baja wheels with 35-inch Kenda cleavers that I just picked up. I've got these on my another vehicle. I've been pretty happy with them so far. They're RT. These are 35, 10.5. By 17s. And so I like them a little bit better than the 12.5s. They don't stick out nearly as much or tucked up under the fender wells a little bit better. I think I'm going to be much happier with that look, ultimately. But I did want to say a couple things about my experience here with the Yukon kit. I had one pretty significant issue, and part of it's my fault, but part of it's Yukon's fault as well. When I was putting the bearings in, the bearing sets, you know, you've got a set for the inside, set for the outside, race and the cone, the bearing. They sent the wrong race with one of the bearings. So the bearing was correct, but it was the wrong race. I didn't catch it. I didn't confirm the numbers on the races. I just looked at when I unpackaged the bearings, I just looked at the bearing numbers and kind of, you know, differentiated them that way. And then when I went to drive the races in to the hub, I just picked up the race and just drove it in. And then when I went to put the put the bearing in, it was pretty immediately clear that something's not right here. The bearing was sitting way too high in the race. So I had to drive that back out. I already had, everything greased, the bearings packed. It was a huge mess. So I got to get on the phone with Yukon tomorrow, get them to send me the correct race. The other issue was the O-ring in the selector. So there's an O-ring on the inside of the selector here, and then an O-ring, that on the outside of the face here where it mates up with the hub. So make sure those are in there. I was fortunate I did catch that, but I didn't catch the issue with the race. So other than that, I think this is going to be great. I'm really pleased with going with the locking hubs. They're a little pricey for what it is, but I just think it's a lot beefier. I think it's going to be a lot more durable, longer lasting. I can keep these unlocked when I'm not on the trail, and just really cut down on the wear and tear, the drag of the rotating mass and everything, turning. So if you end up going with this, I hope this video tutorial on how to put all this together you find helpful. Leave me some comments, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. I know it's going to be it's a pretty long video with going through all the steps, so I appreciate you kind of hanging in there and following me through to the end. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.